Got it.
Star Fox Assault has got to be my favorite game in the entire Star Fox series. The game is over 2 decades old, but it still feels like it was a missed opportunity that the series never really capitalized on. I have to admit that it does leave me a little disappointed in the direction that the series went going forward. Star Fox has been long dormant for years at this point, and with its most recent surprise reveal that it's part of the Mario movie of all things, I find it kind of interesting to think about the series. I have to assume that the majority of modern Nintendo fans probably have just played 64 a little bit, and that's about it. And even if I think Star Fox 64 is a more consistent experience than Assault, I just can't get over the framework that Assault had that just never was fully explored. So considering the movie cameo, I thought now was as good a time as any to go back to Star Fox Assault and talk a little bit about it. Really to share why I often find myself looking so fondly onto this game and the lovably mismanaged series that it belongs to. On paper, when it was released in 2005, I think Star Fox Assault had all the right ideas. It aged up the cast, attempting to clean up the weird story shifts in Star Fox Adventures, which shoehorned Star Fox into a separate concept and sent the series' overarching story into a bit of a spin. It brought Crystal from there onto the main team and moved around the cast to bring some meaningful growth to the squad. It added some side characters like Slippy's dad and moved Peppy, the last pilot from the original squad, into more of a commanding position. At the same time, they introduced a whole new enemy called the Aporoids in order to avoid retreading that already tired Andross plot. Out of every Star Fox game, even to this day, Andross is the main villain in all but I think 1 or 2 of them. Star Fox Assault even plays a bit on that by having the first boss be his nephew that just wants to replicate what Andross did, and then he immediately gets wiped out by the Aporoids. It's also used in a smart way to make them feel like even more of a threat. The plot follows Fox as he tries to get answers about what the Aporoids are and how to prevent them from taking over the galaxy. But I really appreciated how Star Fox Assault really upped the stakes of the plot in these games. The Aporoids are a serious issue, and the characters' matured looks carry well with these surprisingly emotional moments that come along the way. While they don't really follow through on a lot of these things, they try to add some proper tension to the story, and they actually do feel like a dangerous threat. The Aporoids are something out of a horror movie, these like mindless bug viruses that can corrupt man or machine. The Pigma boss fight specifically was this gloriously horrific moment that was maybe one of my earliest introductions to that type of horror.
You cannot resist us, you will join us.
While the other games usually had a branching story and level structure, Star Fox Assault took a bit more linear approach to properly tell a story with some cutscenes and well-delivered dialogue. If Star Fox 64 was like a cheesy Saturday morning cartoon, Star Fox Assault feels like a serialized shonen kind of anime, and it just made sense to have that evolution. Characters don't look like puppets anymore, even if sometimes the animations don't do them justice, and their designs all feel much more distinct. It was really just nice as a fan of these characters to see them interact and face new challenges. So while the presentation of the narrative can be a little bit outdated, I think it still holds up well. Maybe not everything lands, especially when it comes to that story, but I think you have to respect what they're trying to do here. And the music is just so good. A lot of it, I think, was orchestrated, and it sounds amazing. Some of these are the best tracks in the series, or at least the best interpretations of main themes. The story and presentation are pretty good, but how does it feel to play? While the first level and a few others might feel pretty familiar if you're playing many of the other Star Fox games, Star Fox Assault tried a lot of new things to mix things up. The main change is the introduction of the ability to hop in and out of vehicles, with an emphasis on foot sections where Fox uses a variety of weapons to take out targets scattered around a map. I think this is where a lot of the mixed opinions on Star Fox Assault come from. It's a big change from the on-rails games that came before and after, and I think it was a bit hard for a lot of fans to come to terms with it. But I think for me, as somebody who started on 64, played Adventures, and then moved to Assault, it didn't feel so jarring because the games were changing day by day. In retrospect, the default control scheme is maybe a little clunky, and it does make the game feel worse than it actually is to play. When the game came out, Nintendo was still lagging behind on modern twin-stick controls for moving and shooting, and so the game uses tank controls by default. There's actually a twin-stick control setup that you can choose optionally, and I tried that for the first time here, and now I actually do recommend it. I think that the gameplay itself had some really good ideas that just weren't fleshed out. It's fun to run around and mow down enemies as Fox, run over bugs in the Landmaster, and then jet around in the R-Wing. A couple missions in the game have you handling things on foot while providing anti-air cover for the rest of the squad. There's an exciting feeling to being part of an ongoing battle, knocking ships out of the air with your tank and then jumping into an interior section on foot to blast away some bugs. The weapon variety is somewhat basic, but all the guns feel pretty good to use. And even when Star Fox Assault decides to give you some classic on-rails shooting, it also feels really well made. It runs buttery smooth, and I almost feel like the frame rate goes up for these R-Wing segments, which feel really good to control. The first level is such an exciting introduction to the game, and it feels like it was ripped straight out of Star Wars.
How are things on your end, Slippy?
I made it too!
Okay, let's get this operation started.
There were a handful of moments in Star Fox Assault, coming back to it, where I felt like it was reminding me a lot of other popular AAA campaigns. Almost like Call of Duty with these on-rails turret segments and voices in your ear on the radio. It also gave me a little bit of Halo vibes with the multiple open-ended areas with vehicles. I wouldn't be surprised if they took at least a little inspiration from that. But I truly believe that if all of these ideas were given a little more time to be explored and tried out and adjusted, it could have improved and made a really great sequel. I feel like Star Fox 64 is like a solved game. It's like, we've done this, we know how to do it, we've done it right, and there's not really anywhere to go from there. So Assault needed to come in and try new things. And it did, with a decent amount of new ideas that were pretty novel and just weren't fleshed out to round out that final product. All of the problems Star Fox Assault has, though, I think come down to the runtime. You could pretty much finish Star Fox Assault in less time than it takes to make breakfast. The game's story mode is pitifully short, especially if you play on an easier difficulty. It doesn't add stages to compensate for the change in level structure, and still assumes that you want to return and replay those levels to get a high score. You simply aren't given enough time to really get to know the game before it's already over. They introduce a turret segment, the tank, an air defense mission, and you do all these things maybe once or twice, and then you're at the end. A game can be 2 hours long and be really good, but it also can feel like it's cut off too short, and you don't really get that full experience. But it all comes down to Star Fox Assault's true aspirations, which were to be a local multiplayer game.
Multiplayer mayhem!
Star Fox Assault was developed by Namco and openly began development with the idea to flesh out the hastily built multiplayer modes that Star Fox 64 had. And because of this, the story mode in Star Fox Assault got the short end of the stick, and there's a lot less emphasis put on it. A bunch of the multiplayer levels are repurposed into the single player, so that explains why there's a lot of levels where you have to find targets scattered across a map. Even the character designs were also pretty cleverly done to work with the multiplayer. Falco is red, Slippy is yellow, Crystal is blue, and then Fox is just a variety of colors, closest to green though. While the single player suffered a little bit for this, I think the multiplayer in Star Fox Assault is actually really good. This game was my golden eye. We'd spend a lot of days in the various game modes and maps, just messing around in this sandbox that they'd created. There's a lot of variety here, assuming you took the time to play it long enough to actually get everything. You can play as the main Star Fox squad, plus Peppy and Wolf, and each have their own unique characteristics. Wolf is the de facto overpowered unlockable guy, but the rest are pretty evenly balanced around certain aspects of the game. Slippy has better tracking on the tanks, while Falco has better tracking in the air. Fox is an all-rounder, and Crystal gets a spare barrier. You pick a map, set time or score limits, and then try to blow each other away with whatever guns or vehicles you find. But I really enjoyed the ability to freely explore some of these large levels at your own pace and try out the variety of extra modes available too. You could play with jetpacks on, or rockets, or snipers only, or just get put into random vehicles and stick to air combat.
3, 2, 1, go!
I distinctly remember making our own sort of game modes based on the tools we were given, like a mode where we disabled all the radars and tried to snipe each other on the massive Ficina map. Dodging shots from people you didn't see was so panic-inducing and a lot of fun. We would be riding on top of R-Wings and flying around, or just trying to drive along the highways in Corneria with the tanks. There were extra unlockable maps based on Star Fox 64 locations, and just so much variety that you could always find something new to mess around with. When I look back to Star Fox Assault, I don't just think about that single player, but I also think about that multiplayer, which had a lot to offer for people who had GameCubes in 2005 and couldn't play Halo. It sounds cheesy, but it really was the closest thing that we had to that. I even remember one of my brother's friends having an Xbox, I guess, at home, and he played Halo or whatever on it, and so he put the controls to twin stick, and we all thought that they were weird. The single player is really cool and fun in its own way, but the multiplayer I think has a lot of memories tied to it. And I think that it's just a shame that you have to work so hard to actually get all the stuff to make it fun. That sandbox is there for you, but you have to play like 200 missions or whatever to get any of it. I don't even remember how you get all that stuff. I can't forget the first time I saw the demon mine with the huge shower of grenades. It's so good. It's so much fun.
Victory's mine!
With how much fun I was having between the single and multiplayer modes in Star Fox Assault, I could only dream of where the series would go from there. Maybe they'd expand on the multiplayer with 24-man lobbies full of ships and tanks and rocket launchers just going wild. Or maybe they would bring the story to new worlds and introduce a new threat to the Lylat system and see Fox and company go on a new adventure with more missions to play. But despite selling enough to be a player's choice game on GameCube, Star Fox the series would drop all of that and basically remake the cancelled Star Fox 2 on the DS. Star Fox Command is okay, but I really didn't agree with the choices being made at the time. The art style felt like a downgrade, the story was a choose-your-own-adventure style that completely passed up on the story that Assault left behind, and it just wasn't what I imagined Star Fox could have been. And then Star Fox Zero just retreaded 64 again and killed the series. I'm kind of the opinion that Star Fox games never found their specific winning formula, something that appeals to a broad audience while also being inventive and interesting in the long term. While Star Fox 64 came really close, I don't think that gameplay style really scales well into newer generations. And because of that, Nintendo has shelved Star Fox indefinitely until they can find some new idea to mess around with. But every game in the series wanted to retread these same concepts as the original game, just adding small twists that ended up meaning very little in the grand scheme of things. We had Star Fox 64 and it was awesome, but I think the series, because maybe it wasn't as popular as your Marios or your Zeldas, was never given the opportunity to try new things. There's a lot of random thoughts I'm trying to tie together here, but I hope you get the idea. I think fans not settling on what Star Fox should or shouldn't be is a big part of why we don't get these games anymore. That said, here's what I would do. I really like seeing the main cast interact and do stuff together, so they're all back together in a new ship and we're scrapping whatever happened in Command. There are 2 game modes. a mission-based Star Fox story, and an online Lylat Wars mode. Story mode follows Fox and his company through a linear set of levels where you complete missions across a dozen planets, building up your arsenal from nothing to a full fleet. Levels and missions would be small to large-scale battles, and you can swap freely between 4 main pilots assigned to different roles.
Here we go!
Slippy could be on the ground with Fox doing stuff, and you could click a button to swap into the air with Falco or Crystal in a separate location. They could provide air coverage and actually interact with the ground by dropping bombs or something like that. You could do side missions to hire new pilots and train them to bring them with you for different missions. You could even bring back the on-rails missions as side quests or training missions to improve your pilots. But the main squad are still the key characters in the story. You'd build up a little bit of an army, and then at the end of every planet, you would have a huge full-scale battle where you unleash all your guys. The multiplayer mode would be a full experience known simply as Lylat Wars, borrowing from the European name. It would be a huge planetary conflict where you can choose a Corneria or Venom faction and fight alongside as one of those individual pilots that can actually influence the outcome of the war. The gameplay would be similar in structure to the single player, but instead of playing as a commander, you'd be a single foot soldier. That way they could use the same general structure for both game modes. This would also give them an opportunity to introduce tons of new creative weapons and vehicles, some larger vehicles, some smaller ones. You could bring back the walkers from Star Fox Zero, or any of the plethora of ships from Command. I think that maybe if you're not a fan of Star Fox Assault, this all sounds like a terrible idea, but what I really want to say is I just want something new and fresh for this IP. I think that if they announce a new Star Fox game and it's just Star Fox 64 again, we're not seeing another game for a decade. They gotta do something new. I'm not saying this is the correct direction, but it's a direction, and I would like it. The bottom line is that Star Fox has been handed out to so many different studios over the years, and none of them have been given an opportunity to actually continue for a sequel. I think that if any of the teams that were given Star Fox were allowed to make one more game, they might have actually produced something interesting. I think Star Fox is more than due for a full, fresh idea to really change up what the identity of the series is. I feel like I just saw the vision for Star Fox Assault. Be it the likable cast, the flexible gameplay, or surprisingly fun multiplayer, I've always had it in high regard, even if I see the places where it's lacking. It had a specific identity to it that I just hope I explained well enough here. It certainly has had some level of a reevaluation from what I've seen online, which I think is well deserved. Somehow it seems that the movie has been drumming up some excitement for the first time in a long time. It could be nothing, but it's at least something, even if I'd personally be a bit disappointed if it didn't lead to a new game. But that's really all I gotta say, so this is where I wrap things up. If you enjoyed this video, or you've been watching this channel for a while and haven't subscribed, be sure to do so, and like and hype the video if that shows up too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Star Fox Assault or Star Fox in general down below. Maybe you think Star Fox Zero is the peak of the series. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'd like to hear it. With that said, thanks for watching and take care.